This is Phil's system. Remember we built this Lee & Lee Mini, which is not very mini actually at all. You could fit an ATX board in there if you wanted. Fully water-cooled, fully blocked RTX 4080. It's got a 13700K? Yeah, 13700K, two 280 millimeter radiators, and the GPU is overheating. It's not really overheating, it's just it's getting much warmer than it should. Phil tried to, well, he wanted to repaste his GPU, but he couldn't get the fittings off because the tubing that we use is slightly thicker than the hole. So today we're just gonna utilize our sink for the first time, drain this thing, open the block, take a look at it and see what's going on because it is doing some weird stuff right now. I have never seen temps fluctuate this much. We care about the hotspot right now, although 64C on a card only running 350 watts with this much cooling should not be running 65C. So we're gonna try and fix that today. The Evolve X2 PC Tower from Fantex redefines the desktop computer with its see-through glass design, aluminum interior, and powerful vertical cooling solution necessary for today's high-end hardware. The vertical airflow design draws in fresh air from the bottom and expels warm air out the top via a slanted grille design, moving warm air away from the user. An integrated cable management, support for BTF and Project Zero cable systems, and rear motherboard door concealing all wiring makes the Fantex Evolve X2 one of the cleanest towers available today. To see the full list of specs and see our coverage of the Fantex Evolve X2, follow the sponsored link in the description below. So one thing we think might be happening here, we almost hit 70 right there on your GPU temp. And it's actually fairly cold in this room right now. It gets even hotter than this in Phil's house. He was saying he'd actually get up over 90 on the hotspot at home because his AC, you know, I have a very overbuilt AC system for this room. But the problem here is the delta. So we should be seeing a consistent 10 to maybe 12C delta between edge temp and hotspot temp on the NVIDIA GPUs, especially when water cooled. Even air cooled, they stay about 10C apart. So we think we're dealing with potential pump out, which is kind of interesting because one, he's got a horizontal mount right here, not a vertical. Pump out seems to be something a little bit more prevalent in vertical mount simply because gravity is also helping it want to squish out. But what pump out is, if you're not aware, is where the thermal paste, as it gets hot, it becomes more liquidy, and then it cools off, it becomes a little more dense. Doing that over time, the pressure pushing on the mount, because you want high pressure to get a good mount against the die, as it liquefies, it will start to squish out the sides and then keeps happening till eventually there's nothing left. And then you start getting spots that are not being properly cooled, which is how you get these hotspot temps that have such big deltas between the normal temp. So we think that might be what's happening, but that's weird because the KPX is not known for pump out. So I'm curious as to if maybe a thermal pad got flipped over on itself or something and it's causing the block to not sit flat and uniform. He said this is something he's kind of started dealing with like almost right away after the build was done. So,
and I want to say that I did do the thermal paste application. I did show it to Jay and he said it looked fine.
Yeah, but you spread it.
Yeah.
And that's normally fine.
But
who knows if...
I think I just didn't put enough, that's my theory.
I mean, I'm telling you, if you don't use the whole tube, you need the whole tube. Anyway, all I was doing here is I wanted to verify the temps, but also too, getting it nice and warm does also help with getting the fittings off because it tends to make the tubing a little softer. We might also have to use the heat gun to soften up the tubing because what he was dealing with is trying to take off and I'll just take the side panel off now. Your computer's falling apart. These collars are the same, they're the proper diameter for this tubing, but this is the EK, I forget what the rubber type is called, but I love this tubing because it looks nice. It doesn't show any sort of like clouding or anything because it's obviously not clear. It really clamps down. So what happens is you start to try and undo it. It takes the whole fitting off with it and not just the collar, but there's some things that we can do. So you can see he's used a wrench on that. He's used a wrench on that. But what you gotta do, Phil, one of the techniques is don't put the wrench on the fitting, put the wrench on the tube and then the wrench on the other collar. Because what's happening is the tube is clamped onto the barb so tight, it's turning the whole fitting. So if you stop the tube from turning and turn the collar, then you can get it off. But as the tubing gets a little warmer, it becomes a little more soft, which helps with getting it off. So, wow. Okay.
And cut!
I paid over $1,000 for this sink. It's about time I use it. Look at that. Mix some water in with it. This is so nice not having to do this in the
sink, yeah!
It's so nice to be able to do this and not have to do it in the bathroom. Because usually it's splashing all over the porcelain and everything everywhere. See, by grabbing the tube, Phil, and not the fitting, I can turn the collar. Riveting content. So these are really helpful. These are just some stoppers that Nick 3D printed out of TPU. So they're really handy to just like poke off or plug off fittings and holes and stuff. That way you take it out, it doesn't drip everywhere. I don't think this is why, but you can see the flow pattern through the jet plate. It doesn't look like it's actually flowing through all of the fins, and that would be really weird if it's somehow only going through the middle and that's causing the hotspots. So if we open this up and it looks like the thermal paste has not pumped out or there's no dry spots that are missing anything, I have a feeling that could be something to do with it. Oh, you got some hotspots on there. Look, there's a whole side of the die not touched.
Jeez.
You see that? That's weird. But look, it pumped out.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, right? Like, so I had enough paste, but
you did. But we have this whole part of the die right here.
Yeah, I just saw that.
So we just need to repaste it, it looks like. All the thermal pads look good. Everything's flat. Everything's making contact where it's supposed to.
It's just weird how there's a part of the die that's untouched when you saw me spread it across the entire die.
There's another theory. I've seen this before where you go to put it on, but it goes on in an angle and then. So it's important to like get the block on as straight and square as possible. It's like very similar to how we would have to do with the XOC stuff. I'm not gonna worry about trying to get all the excess off of there because it's the same thermal paste we're using. If I was using a different kind of thermal paste, I'd make sure I got all the moat around it clean, but brand new paste, and yes, I'm using a lot on purpose. It's non-conductive, won't hurt anything. As long as you keep going the same direction too, you'll squish out any air. So I've seen people like, don't do it that way, don't frost the cake, you're gonna lap in air. And it's like, no, you just keep going the same direction. I would say literally I've never had a problem, but this GPU has been a problem. I mean, there's some buildup in there. I might as well clean it while we're there. Okay, so we're actually using our microscope here to sort of show you how much is actually blocked off in there. So you can kind of see it right there, right? But we're also backlighting it right now so that you can see, if I get the angle just right. Yeah, you can see, look at that. There's like a whole mound of stuff in there. That could be a part of our problem too. Really got to go through, actually I should just use the microscope for this. I've got to go through each row one at a time and just kind of work its way out, I guess. Look how perfectly new and clean I made it look. Actually, no, I just stole it out of another block we had that we're not gonna be using. It's right here. It's actually for a 4090. We're not gonna be using this for anything. It's specifically for 4090 Tough or Strix, and I don't have any of those cards. So,
dang.
Darn. I mean,
man.
We were getting this one pretty clean actually. Phil, if you look through there right now, you'll see it was starting to come off like all the way down to the base, but this is actually showing how awesome the modular design of this is, because if this ever got messed up, you can just... Wait, did I put it in the right way? This is actually pretty convenient though. I was about to send Nick down to the craft store to get some X-Acto blades because they would have been much thinner and could have fit through the channels. I'll just order some online now from like Amazon or something to have on hand because they're gonna really come in handy with trying to clean these micro channels and such. I could, you know, since I'm not gonna reuse that, I'll just replace these thermal pads too, Phil. The thermal paste spreader tool. The thermal paste spreader tool that you get with a lot of thermal paste now actually work really well at getting these off without scratching. Don't use a razor blade or something, but look at this. Okay, so I pre-spreaded the paste and then I put a dollop in the middle. I know people are gonna get some triggered by that, but I really don't give a flying rat's. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a boot test on this real quick to make sure, this is a good measure when you put everything back together that everything's working fine. In fact, you'd be surprised how much heat it can actually dissipate under load. Like it would take time. You know, we can spread that thermal paste real quick. Here we go, just a quick punch. Are you ready? Okay, it went to 65 instantly on the hotspot. But look, it's staying at about 10 C delta. I don't recommend doing this.
Yeah, seriously guys, don't do this. Do not run a card without any cooling, and then fur mark of all things.
Yeah, but I wanted to do that real quick just to kind of spike the temp on that thermal paste so I can give it another little torque real quick on the back plate. Okay, so now we're gonna put it, still warm. now we're gonna put it back in the system, clean the system out. It's got some dust we could deal with. Vacuum fill it, and then we'll put it back in the test station over there and see what our temps look like. Based on that, I think we've improved. Okay, so I'm gonna do my vacuum fill. If you guys haven't seen this, you're in for a little bit of a treat here. So the way this works is the vacuum will pull all the air out of the system as much as possible. I can't get to a perfect 1 atmosphere. I can get pretty close, which will at least allow me to be able to fill most of the loop with just one process, and then I can top off whatever I need. But this is nice because it allows the lower rad and the upper rad and everything to get stuff in it first, which will be very, very helpful. So to do this right, you need a valve at some point, and it should be lower in the loop than up top, because you need to be able to suck the air out and then close it. That way when we pull the tube off, it doesn't go right back to atmosphere pressure. It will, we want to keep the vacuum inside, because what we're going to do then is after we close that off, we're going to close it, take the tube off the vacuum pump. So we'll stick it in our bottle, open up the valve, and then it will pull the coolant in. And it happens very, very quickly. All in a matter of like 2 seconds will it be filled. It's so foamy in there now. There we go. That's about all the pressure I'll be able to get out of it. I'm about to completely drain that cooling system now because coolant got in there. That's fine though. Like I said, that was just a cheap Amazon unit. So now, take this guy. Are you ready? Are you ready? Check this out. Science, bitch. Nice. But as you can see, that was more than enough for me to at least get the system like primed. And then we can just top off up here with what we need. So here we go. Okay, so we'll see how full it was right now based on how low the reservoir goes right now when I start it. So let's see. There might have been a little air in your pump. It's okay, it's working its way out. It's not fair for us to do a temperature test right now while it's aerated water, so we have to let it run for a little bit. Well, Phil's RGB decided to have a mind of its own, but oh, we have to tighten this cable up because it's now not. Phil can deal with that. Anyway, so the temperatures already are amazing. It's been running here for a while. You can see we're at 53C and 65C on the hotspot. It is staying within 10 to 12, just like I said it should be, not 20 plus. But look, it's down in the low 50s. We're in the 60s on the hotspot. So I have a feeling that whole side of the die that we showed that was nearly clean was the hotspots, and they can only operate at the frequency that the worst core can operate at, or the worst parts of the die can operate at based on temperature. So they all slow down because of what was like maybe a tenth of the entire die. So that's why mount and paste application is very important when it comes to GPU blocks, but everything is exactly as we expect. He's gained a ton of frequency, much better temperatures. And now, and this, by the way, power limit's fully maxed out. Before he had to run it at 100 or maybe even less to control the temperatures. So now he's getting the boost clock, he's getting the additional power limit, but now he's actually getting the full 4080 performance he's always, well, for more than a year now, expected to have. But now he finally gets it. And you know what? The hotspot of the die now is probably very thankful that it's no longer throttling itself to death, because it could have probably even potentially been hotter than that. It just means that's where the nearest sensor to the hotspot was reporting. So the hottest spot could have actually been hotter than that. So there we go. I guess that shows how important things are to get it done right. And you guys got a little demonstration on the vacuum fill stuff, which is kind of nice, but I now have to drain the entire lubrication system in that pump because it is now a aerated foamy mess, but that's okay.
Also things to think about with the micro pins in the block and everything too.
Yeah, we were just really fortunate that I had a second block that we could just swap it out. I mean, we could have cleaned that, and I think the temps would have been pretty damn comparable to this, to be honest, but we can clean the other one. You have a spare, and then, yeah, we need an X-Acto knife, something very fine to get in between there without bending the jet plate open.
Or an ultrasonic cleaner.
True, there's that too. All right, guys, thanks for watching, as always. Oh, and sound off down below about how stupid water cooling is, and it's unimportant and unnecessary and dumb and a waste of time and a waste of money and just really stupid, and people that do it have self-confidence issues and